I'm assuming everybody knew, but perhaps I'll mention it, that our panelists and speakers are all Saidye Bronfman Award winners. Our next speaker is Michael Fortune. He's a furniture designer, wood person. He makes his living and the living of others. And as an observer, I think he's got a sense of humor. I think he's been a role model for many. Changed the field with his experiments and production approaches, and influenced young workers nationally and internationally. Okay.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Can you hear me all right? Is it good? All right. I want to begin by saying that I have had and continue to have the best career that I ever could have imagined. I've been doing this now for 42 years, 4 years in school, and have been making my living as a furniture maker and designer for 38 years. The current term I should point out is that you'll see fairly frequently is bespoke furniture, but it's not a term that I like to use because I feel compelled to break into pirate talk. Yar, that be spoken for. So I'm tending to avoid that as a term. 1973, I'd been at Sheridan for 4 years at that point. Studied with Don McKinley, who set up the program at the School of Design. It's now has had a variety of different names over the years, but when I was a student there, it was the School of Design. And at that point, the program had a very, very strong sort of industrial design commercial bent to it, which changed sort of immediately after I graduated from school. But the instructors I had at the time, and I've listed a few here, they were practicing people that came in from the profession, were exceptional designers, and very, very involved in the profession at the time. And one of the things that I really valued that they got across was the importance of entrepreneurial spirit. If you're going to pursue this, you've really got to do it with a certain degree of enthusiasm and the rest of it. When I was starting out, I graduated in, I guess it was 74, somewhere in that neighborhood. I did get money from the Canada Council and the Ontario Crafts Council, which I am forever grateful for. I grew up in the suburbs outside of Toronto, and without that experience, at that point I was under the impression that that was the pinnacle of civilization. And of course, off I went to Europe for a real education. One of the things I did was I interned with a British furniture designer and maker, Alan Peters, who in turn had interned with Edward Barnsley, interestingly enough. So, in a way, I've kind of tried to follow that as a pattern, and that's essentially what has happened. When I was starting out, it was tough going to say the least. I would put work in exhibitions, group exhibitions, and so on, often sponsored by the Crafts Council or Harbourfront, or an exhibition at the Merton Gallery in Toronto. And during that time, I met people who wished to support my view of what furniture could be. Now, what's evolved over the years is exactly that. I now work for about 6 homes spread right across North America. And if you were to come and visit the studio, and you are more than welcome, we get people dropping in from around the world, you will see 4 projects in progress at any given moment for one of those 6 homes. as that we fill up a home, one magically appears. So we're just typically working for 6 homes, and we're putting in 8, 10, 12, 18, 24 or more pieces of furniture in each home over a number of years. So the beauty to that is I am never looking for work. The work is always there for the various homes that I'm working for. This is a pivotal commission for me. A young couple in Toronto, 1979. I'd done a number of pieces for them already, and they'd been collecting really interesting art and sculpture and so on. And they said, "Well, this really doesn't make any sense. You know, we're sitting on furniture, looking at our artwork that we bought at IKEA. So perhaps you could design chairs for us." And that please remember that chairs are difficult, and that you should try and develop a chair for us that you can continue to make in the future. So that was the inspiration for that commission. We've made over 350 of those chairs at this point. There's 2 chairs on their way to Washington, D.C. in progress in the studio at the moment, and another one going to Indiana. But in any case, that's been a very important part of what I do, and that's taking a design like this and doing it in variation. I will point out the first chairs I did for that client, they were at the time a whopping $465 each. All right. The last time we sold these to a collector in Chicago, they're $10,600. Each. So every time we make a chair, they get more and more expensive. Wood here is a solid ebony, pure silver inlaid into the back, which is something else I want to point out. In addition to designing and making furniture and teaching and so on, I teach all over the place. I also design tools, and I stopped into Lee Valley. If you look at the Lee Valley catalog, and I think it's on page 244, all the products on that page are my products. Not manufactured by me, but my idea, but they are in fact manufactured by Lee Valley Tools, and I get a royalty check 4 times a year. So that's quite wonderful as well. On Etagere, this is one of 22 pieces for that residence. One of the projects we're doing in my workshop at the moment is yet another piece for this residence. This is a dining table done recently. It's a fairly large dining table for the Buckspan residence. I've been working for the Buckspans since 1986, and this piece was done in 2010. Judith and Michael John, just a statement of why they would pursue commissioning furniture or anything the other things that they might commission, and a statement from Barbara and Martin. For me, it's very, very important that what I'm doing is used. And it's not used occasionally in a ceremonial manner. It's used day in and day out. And that whatever I design and make for those clients has to withstand that continual use. This is originally designed for Veronica Tennant. She had won a Toronto Arts Award, and they had a fabulous part of that program was they gave the recipients an additional sum of money, and they were to go back out into the community and commission something, whether it was a painting, a sculpture, or whatever. And in this case, I got a phone call from Veronica to go to her home and take a look at doing a piece for her house. Publicity from that was a huge, huge help. That led to yet another commission for that particular residence. This is a recital stand that Veronica would take when she was narrating different performances. Because it is going to travel, the whole thing had to disassemble and go in a small crate. That led to doing an awful lot of work for the Siemens residents. As I was putting this together, I was trying to mentally go through the various commissions we've done, and I completely forgot the second floor. So I'm saying 11 commissions here. That's on the ground floor. We've done a lot of work on their second floor as well. Joyce was the director of the Canada Council at the time. These tables, there's a pair of them, were designed for her apartment here in Ottawa. An incredibly important commission for me. This is a boardroom table at the Crafts Council, now at Harbourfront. It's really important because at that point I was working in a workshop that was 20 feet long. The longest distance is 20 feet, and that's a 28-foot long table. So I believe what was really happening was they were giving me the shove I needed to get out of that little tiny workshop and in turn become much more productive. And it appears as though that's happened. That led to a variety of other commissions for different art centers around the province. The Clay and Glass Gallery in Kitchener-Waterloo and the Kitchener-Waterloo Center for the Arts. Right about that time, I got a phone call from London, England, to ask me if I was willing to do some consulting in the Caribbean. I got the phone call in November of 1990, and this fellow's asking me if I want to work in the Caribbean. Whew, I'm gone. So that started a 2-year project, and I've been doing that type of work ever since. At that point, I was working for the Commonwealth Secretariat, working very closely, commuting back and forth, working with 5 different companies on the islands of Trinidad and Tobago. That eventually evolved in consulting for the United States government in Central America. And the last project I worked on was for the Canadian government in South America. And for me, this is also another really important part of what I do, and that's my ability as a small studio craftsman capable of working things out, resolving ideas, resolving them for manufacturer, and so on, going out, helping people, or at least I'm providing the design service, and then training the employees to build that work, putting together facilities, improving facilities, and so on, so that they in turn can manufacture products for export. The slide on the left-hand side is I was working in a factory in Central America with about 50 employees. This is a work for a home in Chicago, the Chicago area. Illinois in general is a big area for me, as is the northeastern United States. This is a coffee table. It's 2 meters long, so it's big, in beeswing mahogany and various bits and pieces of formed wood, which is a technique that I'm well known for right across North America. I go out and consult for different companies and so on and teach those techniques right across North America and as far away as Australia. Entranceway table for a favorite client on, I think the address is number 3 Old Yonge Street in Toronto. Typically, the people I'm working with are giving me virtually zero instruction, is what it amounts to. They've said, you know, in this case, what we'd like you to do is something we can throw our car keys on, literally. And I wrote that down in my sketchbook as I was speaking with them, and this is my response to that statement. Vacuum laminated sections. The top is carved out of 3-inch thick solid curly maple. Entranceway pieces for the Governor General's residence, Rideau Hall. They're big, stone tops. In this case, I'm using materials at my own choice from right across Canada. That the stone top and the stone base came from a quarry in Manitoulin Island, for example. The wood is from Western Canada. Interior, all the framing and so on is from Eastern Canada. That commission led to a dining room for Madame Clarkson and John Ralston Saul for their private home in Toronto. The techniques we're using here, the back is vacuum laminated, and that's a technique that's drawn from the aircraft industry, whereas the actual marquetry is solid wood inset into the surface, and that's a technique that dates back to the 14th century. So I'm more than happy to use whatever techniques are appropriate for what I would like to do for that particular commission. We also did a very large dining table for the client as well. This is a laundry hamper. I've been working consistently for this woman since 1981. She was living in Ontario, moved out west to Alberta, married an oil baron. So, you know, when you're filling your car up and it's really expensive, I am getting some of that money back for you, all right? That is a $6,000 laundry hamper. So when you fill your car up, you think, boy, oh boy, somebody's getting paid well. So techniques here, they're vacuum laminated as well, a couple of different species of eucalypt from Australia. For the same residence, just south of Calgary, the client had no idea what they're going to get when we delivered this. This circle there is steam bend, as I mentioned, a technique we're well known for. That piece is 2.5 inches thick, 4.5 inches wide, and is bent around a 10-inch radius. So that's a big piece of wood. There's myself, my crew doing this, along with our neighbors. I phoned the neighbors, and they came in and helped pull the levers around to bend that piece of wood. So it was cut from a tree in downtown Peterborough. The tree had to come down. It was a dead tree. There was a women's shelter going up on the site. The city called and asked me if I wanted the tree. So here I am cutting it up, and there's the piece being bent on the bottom right-hand side. Now, one of the next things we'll do is a small bench of my design for the women's shelter. But I can only afford to do that because I'm selling work out of the rest of the tree. Again, work for that same residence. These tops flip over. They're upholstered on the other side, so they can either be side tables, coffee table, or in the reverse position ottomans. This piece here, I am still working for this home. This is the Fine Weisenfeld residence. Whenever I meet Jean, I always bring this up because this is one of the connections that was made by the exhibitions that Jean organized called Design by Commission. The next two pieces we're doing, and they're big pieces, are going to that residence that we've been working on since 1991. I think we're coming to the end here. This is where we live. I grew up in downtown Toronto. We lived in the downtown core. In 1980, we were visiting friends that lived in Peterborough. He was an architect. He kept hearing about this abandoned homestead. One fall day, beautiful fall day, not unlike what's going on today, we went out, we parked the car, and we struck off into the bush to see if we could find this old log cabin. We eventually stumbled on it, spent a fabulous day laying in the grass, and for the next year, I kept thinking about this place. The roof is collapsing. There's no doors, no windows. There's beer bottles strewn everywhere, and I thought it would be a real shame to see that place either fall down or get burned down. So I ended up putting together a letter. I found out who the owner was, and as it turns out, it belonged to the Crown. and I sent off an unsolicited letter and proposed that they should sell me the property for $1 and that I would rebuild the homestead. So that was in 1980. So my wife and I, Janice, we spent 20 years of weekends commuting up to this property. Meanwhile, we were renovating a home in downtown Toronto that we had bought the previous year for $37,000. Imagine buying a home in downtown Toronto for $37,000. So we finished it. We used it like a cottage, and we moved there in 2000. I'm now running my business from there in another meadow off about 400 or 500 feet away. I have a 4,500 square foot workshop, which you see here, slide of the bench room area. Those are chairs going to, in that case, Chicago and I believe Kansas, if I'm not mistaken. Venture that we're just doing now on the property is this beautiful log barn, no roof on it, no foundation. I had my son, who's now studying architecture at UBC and is currently going to school in Sweden. When he was in high school, I employed Peter to lift the cabin up, put it on a foundation, and now we've turned it into a small gallery space. I'm moving my much larger design office in there. And we have a intern's residence on the second floor. In the past few months, we've had interns in from Missouri, from Toronto, and Indiana. And there's a list of people coming in the future that will be able to stay in this apartment up on the second floor of the barn. And and that's in a way how I see myself fitting into the grand scheme of things. We're getting presentations from people teaching, academics, and so on. But those students that want to pursue this, internships, I think, are incredibly important. I absolutely up, down, and sideways say that I could never have pursued this successfully without that internship with Alan Peters back in 1975. So, I'm basically passing that forward. What's next? Hopefully, I've got another 30 years of furniture making. I'm an optimist, so we'll see what happens. I teach all over the place. I'm responsible for the most advanced level of the largest woodworking school in the United States. I leave from here and go there. So I'll be driving there tomorrow. I've mentioned I'm designing tools, and for me it's also very important that I'm contributing to our culture, but also our economy. And so, I really have to thank the Ontario Crafts Council, the Canada Council, people like Jean and Harbourfront and so on for, the hand up that they gave me when I was starting out. Neither of my parents even went to high school. They both may have finished grade 8, and that was about it. So there really was no role model other than the people that I encountered when I was starting out, like Jean, like Don McKinley, and so on. So thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Michael. I think that's a real testament to the importance of government support in creating taxpayers and contributors to the economy. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we will resume with questions. So if you have any particular questions for any of the panelists, perhaps you could make a note. And so have at the coffee for a moment.